Hey guys, welcome back to Celestial Invitational number 1. We are on day 4, the last group stage, or last day of the group stage, excuse me. I'm D2, with me is Caldy, and we're excited to bring you the second matchup today, that being Thijs versus Kimmy. If you missed the first match, Dog was able to take out Bra Rose 3 games to 2, finally able to clear his Demon Warlock, or Demon Handlock, excuse me, at the end there. And pretty excited about this next one, Thijs versus Kimmy. Thijs bringing Warrior Priest Mage for this first match, whereas Kimmy has Paladin, Hunter, and Druid, as we see Thijs from the Netherlands and Gamers2 on the screen there. What do you think about this matchup, Caldy?
I think it's going to be interesting. I think there's no clear favorite. I think to talk about first that the Druid is probably going to have an easy time for Kimmy, as we talk about it being generally strong against Mage, against Warrior, and against Priest. If Thijs is bringing the Freeze Mage, which is more likely, I would say, as Freeze Mage is stronger against more classes than Tempo Mage. About the Paladin as well. Now, Paladin will be very weak to both the Priest and the Mage, so if Kimmy is able to direct the Paladin onto the Warrior, I think he's doing really well. And then the Hunter is going to be rough against all three, so I feel like Thijs has probably a slight edge,
Mm-hmm. Right.
as he, as I guess the Hunter and the Paladin will both be kind of rough. If Thijs is able to win with the Warrior, I think Thijs will win the series. But if Kimmy is able to get a win with the Hunter and the Paladin, then he is looking better. But talking about Kimmy's decks here, we see a tracking in the Hunter. It's going to be an aggro Hunter with a flare. We see also 3-trap, which is not standard here in the EU metagame. We talk about the Paladin. It's going to be a secret Paladin, but with 2 Ultimans and Quartermaster. So interesting flip on there. Cuts out the cuts out the Coghammer, he cuts out the Lotheb, and adds in those Quartermasters. So it's going to be stronger against the control decks, but weaker against the suit type decks. We'll have to see what Thijs is bringing here. But this looks okay for Kimmy,
Right.
considering the classes he has.
Right. Right. So Thijs actually has almost the exact same lineup that he brought to BlizzCon, that being that Dragon Priest, the Freeze Mage, and the Patron Warrior. Now, if you guys don't know, players have to play all 9 classes throughout the day. So after Thijs plays this match, he has to bring 3 different classes for his next match, and then 3 different classes for the match after that. So yeah, like you say, Thijs has a pretty anti-aggro lineup, which is what his BlizzCon lineup was centered around. And going to be difficult for Kimmy to get, wins with that Hunter in particular. Although Druid might have an okay time, unless it, goes against the Warrior or the Priest. And looks like we might have a bit of a freeze in the stream here, unless Kimmy's just being really, really still. Again, we are piggybacking on the Chinese stream. Thanks again for Team Celestial for allowing us to do this. Gonna do a quick refresh here.
And at that point, we had Spo, we had Thijs, we had Ignite in almost every single final. There were so many open tournaments, and they always seem to make it back to back. I played them in so many finals and semi-finals at that time, because you had the invite scene was a lot narrower than it is now. Generally, you had to know Artosis personally, and that's just how things were.
Right. So
You had, yeah.
sorry to cut you off. It looks like we're finally connected to the stream. Could have been my personal issues, and if so, sorry about that, guys. But looks like we had our Darnassus Aspirant played out. It was killed by the Fiery War Axe, and then from there, the Armor Smith was played, which was similarly swiped. And now we have this situation where looks like we're going to get the patrons in here with a Whirlwind and using the Despite here. So kind of how this matchup can go sometimes. Typically with the from the time of the nerf, it actually has favored, it's starting to favor the patron even more than it used to.
Yeah, this is a very, very nice scenario. Now, Kimmy realizes, okay, my druid is going to be strong against all 3, because it's not an aggro deck. So I really want to be starting with that, because there's no bad scenario. But Thijs outthinks Kimmy here, and Thijs figures, okay, if Kimmy is going to win, he is going to have to beat my warrior with his paladin, because my priest and my mage both demolish the paladin. So what am I going to do? Okay, he's probably going to start Druid, so I'm going to start the strongest deck against Druid, which is the Warrior. The deck that I need to get rid of before I face the Paladin. And he also has a strong hand, but we can't rule out how well he's been playing here. Now, a Battle Rage for 4 is possible. That would be just be devastating here.
Yeah, it would be really nice here, and he can even use that Cruel Taskmaster to play on his. Well, I guess any one of these Grim Patrons. Looks like he's going to just favor getting even more card draw here by using his Cruel Taskmaster on a healthy Grim Patron rather than the 3/2, and possibly throwing that resulting 5/1 into the Emperor Thorson. So really greedy play here by Thijs, favoring that card draw over everything else. And let's see if it pays off for him. He can
No,
push a decent amount of damage and as also get rid of this Thorson at the same time.
what I want to mention is that the reason why he doesn't go for the Despite and Battle Rage here, the reason is that you care more about the board state than you do about the draw. You'd rather have 5 patrons and an empty hand versus no patrons, and an equal board. That's just how this is. Because if you lose the patron board, then the dude can get back into it, but he can't really deal with this right now, and it's looking really, really rough for Kimmy.
Yeah, I want to talk about something. Since we're in this game, we're in a really dominant position by Thijs. We were talking a little bit before about the Druid Paladin pairing, and I think Thijs realized that if this particular set of decks does in fact go against that Druid Paladin pairing, then it will be extremely dominant. In particular, his Patron Warrior will be able to pick up a win pretty easily against that particular pairing, and then from there his other 2 decks can kind of clean up like you mentioned. So really interesting thought process here, potentially from Thijs being able to read any potential decks that could come in from your opponent, even in a situation where they have to play all 9 classes. So I mean, just overall working out really well for Thijs here.
Yeah, Kimmy was kind of call this pants down here, having 2 aggro decks versus a complete anti-aggro lineup from Thijs. So the scenario where Kimmy is winning is if he's beating the warrior with the paladin, and he's beating the hunter with he's beating the mage with the hunter, and already if the warrior has a win here, it's looking even harder because then he will need to beat the priest with the paladin, which is really, really rough. But it looks like, sadly,
Yeah,
I saw that message yesterday, and I believe that is unable to connect back to game.
right.
And this is a horrible situation because Thijs
Well,
had this game completely
Well, he had
won.
lethal on board, so I think they actually will give the game to Tice if we're going by the rules that you were mentioning earlier. Or he had lethal in hand, excuse me. He had 14 damage on board plus a Despite. He even had the Inner Rage, so he had, I believe, 5 damage over lethal. And so I don't really see there being a regame in this situation.
Yeah, it wouldn't really be fair if there is lethal on the board. I definitely support a decision to go for that.
Right, so we're gonna await a decision here. Obviously, we are getting permission from Team Celestial to be able to cast this in English for you guys, but not completely connected to everything that's going on at the studio. We will be close to Skype in order to get confirmation from the manager of Celestial. But yeah, I would imagine that would be the ruling, just to give the game to Tice here.
Oh yeah, no question. I definitely support them in making that call, if that is the decision that they will end up going for. It's horrible to have a completely one game, even lethal on board, but I think though if there is no lethal on board, they have to regame, and the reason is
Well,
that you can't really be making a call. If there is no lethal on board, I mean, you can't be judging as an admin one way or the other. And
mm,
there was a very famous example that happened at Affinity where a player from My Insanity Fake, a very, very strong EU player from Germany, was playing against Forsen. And now what happened was that Fake was playing a Control Hunter. And for those of you who don't know Control Hunter, you have Wild Pyromancers, you have Acolytes of Pain, you have Hunter's Marks, you have Gazrilla, Alex Straza, Dr. Boom, you have 2 Savannas, you run Ragnaros, for example. So there's a lot of late game.
I mean, 2 fake
And
deaths. Or
actually, no fake death in that one.
you
It's a
mentioned
different version.
you mentioned 2 Sylvanas, and my head started spinning for a second. I'm
Oh,
like, wait, what?
sorry, I said Savannah.
Savannah
I
Hyman's
said
right.
Savannah Hyman. Yeah, it's
Right,
my
right.
accent. Have
Sorry
a
about
kind
that.
of an accent here. But if we talk about that, so the admin saw a scenario where it was Control Warrior versus Hunter on turn 12,
Hmm.
and there were 3 cards in each player's hand, and the admin called a win for the warrior. But what happened was that there was a Ragnaros on board for the warrior and a Ragnaros in hand for the uh, for the hunter, and the hunter plays the Ragnaros and disconnects. And now, generally, there wasn't Alexstrasza in hand for the warrior, and only a kill command, I believe, for the hunter. But the admin calls a win for the warrior because the admin hadn't seen control hunter before. I don't blame him, you know.
Hmm.
But what happened was that the French stream didn't lag out, and the French stream saw that
Oh, right.
that
I
the
remember this. I remember this. Right.
the
Yeah.
Ragnaros from the hunter hit the Ragnaros from the warrior, and that puts the hunter in a commanding lead. But the hunter was awarded a auto loss. So that's just a scenario why I think it's important to, if there's no lethal on board, to regame.
Hmm. In this case, Thijs did have lethal in hand, and hard to see him missing that lethal in this situation. So we do see that Thijs was awarded the victory. We see his warrior was grayed out, so that's going to be cleared. And Thijs does take that 1-0 victory. Probably a relief for him hearing that ruling. And for Kimmy, probably going to be okay with that ruling as well. I mean, knowing that he was pretty much dead regardless. And we're going to go into this next game. It's going to be the Dragon Priest versus the Druid. And this basically comes down to the draws. A lot of games do come down to it. To the draws, obviously. That's very important in Hearthstone. But in particular, this matchup, you really want to get a good start as the Dragon Priest and start pulling your weight around, using your hero power to be able to keep your minions healthy and make it really hard for the Druid to get back into the game. Whereas Druid, if you can use your ramp to kind of take control early on, you can snowball the game and obviously use your combo pieces to finish them out.
You know, before we had only a few type of decks that were Sue style, and that was generally just Sue, maybe a little bit Paladin. But now, yeah, we have Secret Paladin, we have Raptor Rogue, for example, we have also the Dragon Priest, and it just plays like Sue, so it's actually really strong against the Druid. The Corruptor particularly is strong against the Druid. We have the Guardian being strong. There's a lot of early minions here. But the one thing that Priest always struggles with is the Sweater. And now it's an awkward position, honestly, for Kimmy. What does he do here? I think Wild Growth is one of the obvious ones, but
Right. I
where
mean,
does he go from there? I mean, if there's a Valence chosen, there's almost nothing he can do. That's why he's attacking. But
yeah, it's
uh,
really awkward for Kimmy here because he almost has too much ramp. Actually, he does have too much ramp. You don't really want to be having, 4 pieces in hand, or 4 pieces overall out of your 6 cards that you've drawn so far. And it's just going to be a really tough decision, or tough situation for Kimmy. And in the end, didn't go for the Innervate Shredder, instead wanted to get rid of the Twilight Whelp. And Thijs also had a really interesting turn last turn when he decided to play the Twilight Whelp to get presence onto the board, kind of gambling that he picked up a dragon later because now his Twilight Guardian won't be able to be activated, obviously without that dragon in hand.
so what I want to talk about is there was a line of play that I saw last turn that Kimmy didn't go for. And I think a potential play last turn would have been to innovate out the keeper and silence the Darnassus. Now uh, it gives you the free wild growth because
Hmm.
he did use wild growth, but it also gets your minion on the board. And if you're using an innovate, essentially you get a 2/4 and a wild growth. And what Kimmy got was 1 damage in a wild growth, but he used the innovate anyway. And then on turn 4 now he could have either gone for Shredder or double wild growth. I felt it was a cleaner play in my opinion.
Right. Also, he could have cleared one of the minions using that keeper, but also obviously he wouldn't have the mana to play a 4 mana minion this turn. So just everything kind of difficult here for Kimmy. And Thijs looks like his gamble didn't quite pay off and didn't get a dragon. Got that light bomb instead and forced to play this Wormrest agent, which will get silenced. It looks like. And now Brand Bronzebeard is going to hit the dust and fall.
Yeah, you do get a double battle cry. And if you have Brand Bronzebeard, generally you would get a Druid of the Claw for the Twilight Guardian, but you need a dragon, so it's either going to be a 2/6 or a 4/6, and there's no in between, even if you have Brand Bronzebeard. So, decent call though, and Thijs obviously checks first what comes out of the sweater. You know, he has the sequencing down very methodical player here. We're going to be
Right.
looking at either Azure Drake or Twilight Garden. I'd be very surprised.
Wow, he goes for the Azure Drake. I was expecting to see a Twilight Guardian there for the beefier minion, but looks like he realizes that there's a good chance he's going to be go for this Cabal here, unless Kimmy just sacrifices it in fear of that situation. But yeah, interesting
Yeah,
play by Thijs, gambling that he'll have a dragon 2 turns from now.
I think the idea is okay. Kimmy is almost never going to trade into the Azure Drake, but he might trade into the Twilight Guardian in a swipe. So I want to
Right.
just guarantee that I'm going to steal a 2-4. Well played to Thijs. This is obviously honestly a next level play. A lot of respect to him for that.
And Kimmy is actually considering sacrificing his keeper of the grove, which would be another next level play, and making sure that it doesn't go to his opponent. But just gonna take a risk that he doesn't have it. Gonna get punished here. Really hard to make that play, honestly. And basically, you're kind of giving up your board, right? Because now the 4-2 Azure Drake can trade into yours. But yeah, in
Yeah,
the
I mean,
end,
Violence Chosen and his GG,
yeah,
Powered Shield and his GG. That's just how it goes.
right.
So it would have been, next level, but I think it would have been the wrong call. We talked about yesterday, Colento went for a play where the scenario was, do you play around lethal or not with a tempo mage? And Colento didn't play around combo because he couldn't afford to because he was behind.
Right, right,
And
right.
he did end up, his opponent did end up having the combo and Colento lost, but I still think it was the correct call, even though he lost. But this, I think, would have been the correct play. But even, I mean, it would have worked out better for Kimmy to go for the trade into that Drake, but it would have been the wrong call, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to consider that even though Kimmy didn't go for the trade, I think it would have been the
Ooh.
wrong call because in the majority of the time it would have been better not to. But now the Shrink Master Cabal combo is
Yeah, I
staring
was
Thijs
looking
down.
at that 1 mana off having an amazing comp. Basically, if Thijs had 8 mana here, the game is essentially over. Unable to go for that. Yeah, Kimmy, obviously, like you say, a really tough call. Could have maybe sacrificed the minion. There were 2 cards in particular that hadn't been used by Thijs the entire time. The leftmost ones, being that Twilight Guardian and the Cabal that weren't touched essentially the entire time, as well as the Light Bomb, which was picked up a little bit later. But kind of hard to put your opponent on that, especially when they had to play every single turn. So yeah, just difficult situation overall. And it looks like Thijs is not going to hold on to that Shrinkmeister for the Cabal. Just gonna value getting more. Getting a bigger board onto the field this turn, and he saves 2 health on his Keeper, saves 2 health on his Cabal, and gets an extra 3/2 on the board. Pretty solid play overall.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Thijs rarely ever misplays. I think he's probably one of the more solid players you do face, and always when you play against him in a tournament, you just see things that you generally just don't see on ladder. Those next level plays that really do impress. But Kimmy now has no options here. Sadly, I don't know what he can do.
Yeah, this is kind of the situation that the Druid finds itself a lot of times against the Dragon Priest. Dragon Priest just has so many minions that they get buffed by the dragons. They get pretty big, and they're really annoying to deal with, especially for Druid. Druid not known for having that much removal to deal with this kind of board state. And I mean, notorious for that situation, and that's why they can fall in trouble against decks that can get the tempo on them, like this Dragon Priest, like the Secret Paladin, and like the Tempo Mage as well. Those are the decks that Druid really struggles with because they are unable to keep up in the beginning, even sometimes with even with those tempo cards, or excuse me, the ramp cards in hand.
Yeah, you generally just need a huge innovate. You need an innovate sweater. I think is one of the strongest, or innovate through the claw, something that you can kill the minions. Because this type of deck is almost like the Zoo, where you need to have the Dark Cultist stay alive to get the buff from there. You need to have a minion on board to be able to cast the Venomous Chosen. You need to have the Dragon Synergy rolling to get those benefits. But if you have an empty board and the Druid can keep on killing the minions over and over, but it's not over yet. Now this is close to a clear here um, for Kimmy. He can almost clear, I believe here. Yeah, and I mean, I guess what I would like him to do is leave the. Is just to leave the.
Dark Cultist.
I think even looking at the keep of the grove as something to
Right.
leave. I don't know.
Yeah, obviously
Are
he
you more
can't
afraid of, yeah,
he
like,
can't clear
hmm.
everything. The difficult part about the situation is the extra health on that Cabal Shadow Priest right now. And yeah, he can throw two guys into that and then use his face on one of the other minions to clear. And yeah, it looks like he's going to either probably leave the Keeper or the Dark Cultist. It's up to him. And yeah, just difficult overall the situation. Gonna go leave the Keeper. Unfortunately, is going to get buffed by that Dark Cultist and turn into a 2/4. But yeah, Ty's interesting play last turn as well. He went for the Cabal, even though he wasn't stealing anything, just so he could do this turn right now, which is to play a 5 cost minion and potentially his Twilight Guardian as well if he were to pick up some sort of buff. But without that buff, looks like he's just gonna settle for that Dark Cultist. And now Kimmy in a lot of trouble. Even if he heals, he can heal 1 damage out of range. But now he's giving that up by using this Wild Growth, realizing he needs some more help. And
I mean, Druid of the Claw would be one of them, but Azure
right.
just doesn't cut it. He heals for 5 now, but he still dies,
Yep.
sadly. Wait, is there anything that he can get? No, I don't
I
think so. Not even
yeah,
Wrath.
I doubt it. Yeah. So there we go. It's going to be game. Tice takes the second game. He's going to go up 2 games to 0 so far. But like we saw in the last series, no lead is safe in this situation. Oftentimes the third mate, or sorry, the third deck can run to a bit of trouble. Since we saw Dog go up 2 games to 0 and then have to win it in the end in the fifth game. So we'll see if Kimmy can mount a similar comeback in the situation.
Absolutely. Talk a bit about the Chinese scene. Now, we've seen them all be very formally dressed here. So it's something that the EU and NAC need to pick up on. We're kind of getting outclassed here, I feel.
Well, I mean, the players were invited to the studio in order to be able to compete there, but obviously, issues with travel and getting visas. So a lot of the players, like Dog and Tice, elected to stay home instead. And for these players like Kimmy and Brawrose, they're kind of under the radar pros. They were able to qualify for this with very solid play in the qualifiers up to this point. And so for them, it's a big deal, and they want to look their best, obviously, going with that attire. And all that aside, we are going to be getting into our third game here with Kimmy piloting the Combo Druid against Tice's Freeze Mage. Finally, a good matchup for Kimmy here.
Yeah, I think considering the scenario, I think Kimmy did go for the right call. It was a bit obvious that the Druid would be the strongest deck. So I feel like in the mind game, Thijs did win the mind game because Thijs figured, okay, Druid is gonna be the strongest. I'm just gonna counter the Druid, and it's been working out for him here. Now Thijs's hand is mediocre at best, and now what generally Thijs needs to have happen to win is to get a huge Doomsayer turn, and generally not have your opponent have a wild growth. So if he only has an innovate, he can overcommit and potentially lose. But yeah, Kimmy is not thinking about coin living seeds. I think he could just do that next turn. And now he has more information. He probably is expecting this to be freeze mage, and now he has. And now it's overwhelmingly likely that this is going to be freeze mage.
Yeah, exactly. And in that situation, you don't want to use the Living Roots in that particular situation, especially because you're handcuffing yourself for future turns. He could maybe use it later on, but looks like he's going to like to use Living Roots now, clear that out, and doesn't want to take the extra damage, considering that Freeze Mage will take all the extra damage it can get, especially because a lot of times you might want to use Alex Raza on your own face.
Now, I want to talk about the early stages of freeze mates, and people think, oh, they have a lot of burst. I should, savor every health point. But that's not how it works against freeze mates. Freeze mates, you don't care about your health from 30 to 20,
Hmm.
because Alex Strauss is going to bring it down to 15 anyway. So if you get Alex Strauss at well, you have 30 life or 28 versus 20, it just doesn't matter.
Hmm.
So you generally don't care if your opponent gets Mad Scientist or Luke Tor and starts to deal 2 or 4 damage to your face, because you can take 10 damage and there'll be no problem at all.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, this is not only going to be killing the Paladin Sphere, it's also going to be preventing the next minion to come out. And I think there's even some merit to using the Azure Drake here, as crazy as it is, or possibly the Paladin Sphere, because you're in such a hurry. But yeah, I mean, what does Thijs do now?
Ooh,
An
Armor Smith.
Armor Smith.
Yeah,
Oof.
that's pretty annoying for Tice to deal with. Obviously, not much Wow, the well played coming out from Kimmy there. They're kind of interesting. Wonder what he means by that. Throwing,
BM, yeah. Oof,
yeah.
it's like, watch out, dude. I'm not out yet. I'm 2-0 down, but still, I've got some tricks here left. Another thing though is the armor does matter. Now I remember in the beta where Alex Strauss actually did throw out the armor as well. Those were good times, yeah. But those times are over now, and Alex Strauss doesn't destroy all the armor, and so it's a bit rougher now than it used to be. And if you get armor, then obviously you want to hold on to that armor, and that's what Kimmy is going to be doing here.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to be looking to gain as much armor as possible in this situation. However, he doesn't have, he's not able to prevent this acolyte from gaining a lot of cards, even without the hero power. Interesting gamble by Thijs, not pinging that right away, instead going with the loot hoarder onto the board. And
I mean, yeah, he was very likely to get, if he gets swiped or wrathed, then that's perfect. And he doesn't have a wrath or swipe for the Antonatas or the Emperor or the Doomsayer, so that would be a win for Thijs. And Thijs figures, okay, if he doesn't wrath or swipe or salvage draw, I'm going to get 2 draws out of this. But now he can get the 3rd draw. I feel like Kimmy may have wanted to attack with the Argent Protector before to guarantee that Thijs only gets 2 draws out of the Acolyte, not the 3rd one. But Kono Cold seems strong here.
right, this is something that Thijs likes to put it in his deck. I don't believe this is a Reno filled mage, so it's just kind of something that Thijs likes to stick in there as a bit of a tempo card or a tech card, excuse me, to provide that extra anti-aggro flavor into his deck. A lot of other players like to put different cards in there, sometimes more card draw, sometimes more healing, something of that sort. But Thijs just likes to go for that Kono Cold, and again, not playing the Reno Jackson, so that's not the reason for it. In any case, for this next turn, Thijs, under a bit of pressure here, can go for the Blizzard to freeze off his opponent's board. Not likely to use the Frost Nova because, honestly, that's a better card than the Blizzard oftentimes because you're able to freeze your opponent's board for pretty cheap. It looks like he's just going to go for the card draw first before he makes any decisions. And honestly, I could see him going for anything here, including more card draw. He is under danger of dying to some sort of combo, but obviously that would require an innervate in the hand of Kimmy. But yeah, it looks like he is going to go for that extra card draw. But can be under danger of overdrawing in this situation if Kimmy wants to force that out of him. So yeah, Thijs is on 8 cards right now, so if Kimmy really wanted to, he could make Thijs overdraw here.
Now, I think there's a potential for this to be a Reno Jackson lock still. Now, generally, you would run 2 loot hoarders
Oh,
or
I
two
checked the
acolytes.
deck earlier when they had it on the screen to see if there's Reno Jackson, and there wasn't any.
Yeah, generally, you'd run two fireballs if there was no Reno Jackson, and you'd be running 2 acolytes instead of 1 acolyte, 1 novice engineer. And we've seen the second acolyte, so it would suggest there's no Reno, but it still would be possible. But if you've seen the deck list, obviously that's a big thing. But now Kimmy has everything you could ever need, except maybe the Kazan to just finish this off. He even has 5 armor on top of that. So Thijs realizes though I have to play greedy. The way I'm going to win this is through a Doomsayer turn into an Antonera's turn. Now he just needed the Doomsayer. If he goes for the Blizzard, it's a losing play. So respect to Thijs for figuring that out. I think, yeah, what he may need to do now is just go for the Frost Nova, and then he will get some chances to potentially draw into the Doomsayer.
Yeah, the crazy thing about Tice's situation right now is that say he pings his own Acolyte and then uses Blizzard, from that he might overdraw, ironically, especially because he wants to be drawing as many cards as possible right now to get to that Doomsayer that you mentioned. So kind of awkward situation for Tice, unable to draw as many cards as he wants to, and instead gonna give this Emperor likely some more draws. Nope, gonna take it out with that Frostbolt. Was wondering if he's gonna go for that Mad Scientist instead, but holds it off, realizing how dangerous that Thorson can be. I mean, you let that thing go for too many turns, and suddenly you're looking at double combo, right? With the double Force Nature, double Savage Roar, and that's a lot of damage.
The thing is, though, there is a point of no return. Definitely with this type of deck. You know, when you're at around 10 health, you realize that your opponent is just going to be able to. He doesn't charge the Druid.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was very surprised by that as well. There's nothing that can stop you here other than Frost Nova, and obviously the extra 2 health on the Druid of the Claw doesn't really matter in this situation. So I maybe a bit of nerves here. Obviously he wants to play more conservative since he is the less experienced player. Someone of Thijs' caliber obviously mostly wouldn't hesitate to go for the more ballsy play, which is going for the charge there. But in Kimmy's situation, maybe playing a bit conservative because this is one of his first lands.
Absolutely could be, yeah. It also depends, like, have you been playing against freeze mates since the early beta? And that's something that Thijs has been doing. I don't know if you remember, but when Alexstrasza destroyed armor, and when Frost Nova was 2 mana, and
Right.
Visitor was 5 mana, and Cone of Cold was 3 mana, you'd play Cone of Cold in Acro Mates, because it was 3 mana, and you just mess up everything. Like a fan, almost.
Right. In this case, Thijs is going for the very courageous play here, going for the Thaurissan and the Doomsayer, rather than going for something like a Frost Nova to stop his opponent's board, realizing he needs to get everything as cheap as possible if he wants to start making waves in the future. It does have the ability, for instance, to play Antonidas, Frost Nova, and Ice Block, or something of that nature in future turns. So I kind of like this play by Thijs, really just putting on the aggression now instead of sitting back and letting himself get pummeled.
Yeah, Thijs is playing to win. He's not playing to lose, or to lose slower.
Right.
He realizes, okay, what do I have to do? What type of scenario has to happen for me to win? And he realized, okay, my opponent is most likely not going to be able to clear both of those minions and lethal me. So then I could possibly go for Antonidas Ice Block on the following turn and get something going. But
Right.
yeah, this is nerve-wracking for Kimmy here. Is he going to just go
Oh,
complete face? I
wow.
think he
The
might be
lag
the.
here is really hurting him too. Oh no.
Oh no
Oh
no no
no.
no!
This is really bad. And then oh geez. But he can't. Wow, that is really that must be so frustrating for him to have to deal with this right now. And I wonder what Tice is thinking right now. He must realize that there was a lot of lag here in that situation. Kimmy, I believe, could have cleared the entire board
He,
and popped a block.
I, I don't. I think he could have cleared the Doomsayer for sure, but I think the last trend was only 4 damage. So if he wants to clear the Doomsayer and the Emperor, he could leave the Emperor at 1 health. But I don't think he would actually want that. I think the only thing he really missed out on here was if he was going to pop the block, he couldn't kill both Doomsayer and Emperor. But what he missed out on was the Wild Growth.
Right. Yeah, definitely the wild growth. Having that extra mana for the next turn and being able to play that was a big deal. But yeah, like you said, it was very interesting play by him. He could have gone for the kill on the Doomsayer and just left the Thaurissan up potentially. But
Ooh, tough decks to win
yeah,
here. Thais almost had
wow.
the game, but I'll talk about the scenario that Kimmy was in. He was in a scenario where he did get a slight loss from the lag, and what players can't do, and what I've seen way too many players in tournaments do, is have something like that happen and don't do anything and complain after. That's something you can't do. So in that case, what he would need to do is stand up, talk to the admins, and put the game on the line. What you need to do is say, okay, I took a loss. This is not fair. I want a regame, or I want this. But you can't quietly sit and play through the game, check if you win, and then complain if you lose.
Right.
So there is a lot of responsibility for the admins, but there's also the players also have the responsibility to say something, while the game is going on. You can't check if you win and then complain if you lose. Because if
Right.
you are playing, if you're continuing playing your next turn, you are accepting the I guess the disadvantage.
Hmm. Yeah, you could see him putting his hand up and kind of halfway in between being upset about the situation. So yeah, like you said, could I mean either play through it or maybe call an admin. But luckily for him, he was able to pick up that Savage Roar and finally pick up the win there. Tice obviously going with the really risky play of using the Alex Jaws on his face, or risking having his opponent having the extra combo or the combo with the hero power, be it via the Thaurissan or some sort of innervate play, but. In the end, yeah, that risky play did not work out for Thijs. He is still up 2 games to 1, and he has a couple of favorable matchups left. Though we have seen Secret Paladin defeat Freeze Mage before, if Freeze Mage doesn't get the right cards in hand.
Yeah, I actually played against Super JJ myself. No, against Just Shine yesterday in this matchup, and the scenario that I had was getting extremely lucky. Yeah, it was Minibot into Juggler into Muster into Shredder into Lothep. That was how
Right.
that worked, and I also needed to get a secret mystery challenger and a consecrate. So when he played the Frost Nova Doomsayer, which is pretty unstoppable for Paladin, the best scenario to get out of that is generally through Frost Nova and no, it's through Repentance and Consecrate, and you generally only run one Consecrate and one Repentance, so it's really hard for that all to work out. But there's a lot that needs to come together for Kimmy to have a chance. His hand is not bad though. Yeah,
Yeah,
Divine
his
Favor is really good, but it doesn't matter how many cards you have in your hand if the mage can clear with you having the mage having around 15 to 20 health. If you mage can clear and it has 15 to 20 health, there's almost nothing you can do.
Right, and interesting play by Kimmy this last turn, hitting the face with the Secret Keeper rather than clearing out that Mad Scientist. Wanting to get as much damage in as possible, and also realizing that this Mad Scientist would die to that Noble Sacrifice. But yeah, Kimmy, if he wants to win this game, it's just the hand it's going to take. You know, has a lot of power in here. Gonna put this muster on the, or excuse me, muster for battle on the field right now, and has that Lothib to slow down Thijs for a turn, as well as the Divine Favor to refill his hand. And Thijs' hand not looking too bad either. Has, you know, that card draw that you can see. But I mean, you were mentioning earlier that Kimmy does have the Quartermaster, I believe, and the Keeper of Oldemons in his, or the Keepers of Oldemon, however you say that plural, in his deck. So that might be a big deal going forward if he's able to buff up this board and make it difficult for Thijs.
I think an even more important thing when we talk about the keepers of Oldemon is you could kill a Doomsayer with that and True Sleeper, which
Right.
you really couldn't do anyway. But yeah, with these style decks, it generally comes down to how fast is the deck and how well does it deal with the Doomsayer. And now Priest has no counter, generally the Dragon Priest, and Paladin has very limited counters. Essentially, only few of them run Owl. It's going to be one Owl, and most of them run one Consecrate and one Repentance, and that is. But I mean, the Ultimate is a second possibility to kill Doomsayer, but there's no Doomsayer in Thijs' hand. So the other scenario is, okay, your opponent just doesn't draw any Doomsayer, and then you can win through that alone. But
Yeah.
Lothib is going to come down here. That's going to be a lot of damage.
Yeah, Lothar will guarantee a lot of damage gets through. He's thinking about it right now. The one big risk that you take playing Lothib before your opponent's turn 6 as a Freeze Mage, is that he can just plop down that Thorson, and it'll just allow him to have good turns in the future as well. And you're not really stopping anything at all in that situation. So we will see what happens here with Kimmy, whether he wants to play that Lothib or not. Will, again, like we say, it's going to guarantee a lot of damage to the face, but is it going to be enough for lethal? Because otherwise, Thijs is just going to play this Thorson and help him out in future turns.
Yeah, I mean, generally, the card draw isn't even that important for Kimmy. Now, card draw is very important for these combo type of decks that you have a lot of cheap spells that you can
Wow.
use, and the power
Is
of
that
of
lethal?
your
Sorry to cut you off there. Is that lethal?
yeah,
So
no
that's
worries.
8, 10, 13, 13, exact lethal with that True Silver Champion. And Kimmy's counting out right now, and I imagine he's not going to miss it this time. This is the perfect situation for him. Typically, you don't get lethal right
Oof.
in this situation. Nothing for Thijs to do last turn. And you see the expression on Thijs' face, hoping there's no True Silver in hand. But yeah, now he knows the bad news. And even through the slight bit of lag here, Kimmy is going to be able to kill Thijs. And that's going to set up a game 5, improbably, between these two. Going to be a Face Hunter versus a Mage. Such a crazy series thus far.
And now we talked about the Hunter, and the Hunter has the best chance against the Freeze Mage out of the three. This is possible. It's not likely, but it's possible that the Kimmy could pull the reverse alt kill here and take the series. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I didn't get to mention with the issues at the start of this series was that, I mean, casting Kimmy earlier when he was trying to qualify for this event, I thought he played extremely well. I didn't see any sort of misplays for him whatsoever, and that's why I was a bit, worried for him at the beginning of this series when he was, had a couple of odd plays here and there. But I think he played better in the qualifiers up to this event, better than players that we've seen in the past, other bigger name players like Chao Shen and like Zoro earlier on. He was able to beat No Tomorrow, a BlizzCon qualifier, in the finals of his qualification to get here, as well as Ice Fox, who's another prominent Chinese player. So Kimmy, no slouch. I think he played excellently coming into this tournament, and hope maybe he can make himself look good, make me look good for kind of believing him in here.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take anything away from Kimmy. Kimmy is playing like he's top 50 in the world. Thijs is kind of playing like he's top 5 in the world. So I think Kimmy was not behind because he misplayed it. I think Kimmy was behind because he had the weaker lineup.
Right.
I think that was the main thing. So if we talk about his play, it's been really really good. And but to talk a bit about this matchup here, this is generally favored for the freeze mates.
Right.
And the reason that is the ice barrier is so devastating. And especially if he has Reno now, I actually prefer against Phase Hunter alone, I prefer Healbot over Reno. I think Reno is way stronger against the Zoo type of decks, where you have the patience to be able to possibly pull that off. But against Phase Hunter, it generally doesn't come down to do you have an answer on turn 8 or 9. It comes down to can you stop the onslaught on turn 2 and 3.
Yeah,
But
something
what do you
like
think about the...
Sorry?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, something like Doomsayer would be able to stop this right away. Say if Thijs had Doomsayer on turn 2, but now it's a bit too late to do something like that. And like you say, we had Reno Jackson Warlock come out from Fu Oliver on, I believe, day 2, and he got pretty crushed by Hunter because even though he had the Reno Jackson in his hand, it wasn't able to activate, obviously, because he wasn't able to draw the requisite cards to make it work. So yeah, going to be interesting for Thijs in this situation. Again, I don't believe he has Reno Jackson in his deck, but yeah, I mean, has a tough decision here. You want to play Ice Barrier earlier rather than later. And we do see that the Ice Barrier is in his hand. And the reason why you want to play it earlier than later is because, say you hold off, you decide to get greedy, you play some cards, and your opponent, develops a board and maybe Arcane Golems you in the face or something like that. Then you have to deal with those minions first before you play the Ice Barrier, and then they just get more damage in, and then from there they can just direct damage you to death, and then all of a sudden your Ice Barrier is useless. So interesting to see how quickly Thijs goes with the Ice Barrier in this game. When you're playing Freeze Mage in this matchup, how quickly would you play the Ice Barrier?
It kind of depends on the follow-up. What do you have in your hand? If you don't really have a follow-up for turn 4, I would go for the Arcane Intellect over Ice Barrier. But if you do have a follow-up on turn 4, I would go, no question, for the Ice Barrier. And I think Thijs Leonard plays strong too. If the I guess the Bloodmaid's Talons is left unchecked, you could just Forgotten Torch this minion down here.
Right.
Yeah. So I like his line of play, but you have to be very mindful of the fact that Ice Barrier is just a heal bot for 3 mana. That's how it plays out.
Right.
He doesn't trade. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so Kimmy under obviously roping till the end there. Really tough decision here. Obviously, every point of damage matters against the Freeze Mage, but again, that Blood Mage Thalnos is a huge threat. Like you say, can play the Forgotten Torch to take out this Misho right away. And
I think
wow,
in that case,
Fireball. Very interesting play here. Wants to be able to be as efficient as possible with his mana, and realizes that his Forgotten Torch can kill basically anything that comes out of a Phase Hunter anyway. So yeah, and now on turn 5 he can ping and Forgotten Torch. So I really like this play by Thijs.
yeah, he figures, okay, Forgotten Torch is 1 less mana, so it's kind of the equivalent of going for. I don't think he could trade now.
Yeah, if you
I
don't
think
trade
you go
last
face now.
turn,
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't trade last turn, I think you continue going face. I don't like this. This is really, arbitrary kind of, but I don't like it when people hover over both and kind of going back and forth. I really like to just sit there and think about all the possibilities of, the repercussions of your actions, whether you go face or hit the Thalanos. And sometimes when you're just, hovering back and forth over the face and the mid, you're not really thinking. You're just kind of, arbitrarily doing that. What do you think?
Yeah. Another thing, you want to plan out your entire turn. He used all the mana and then he thought about how he was going to attack.
Right.
And I mean, okay, fine. If there's a given thing, you're gonna big him onto this Doctor Boom. You can go ahead and do it, and then figure out the 4 mana, and maybe it makes it easier for you to calculate out everything. But if it's something like this, I think you may want to think about your entire turn first. Uh, but yeah, I think if the Thijs is thinking, okay, Forgotten Torch, I could use with a hero power. Fireball I couldn't use with a hero power in turn 5, so I want to go for the Fireball first. I think it's really a next level play, and I'm kind of impressed by that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's an arbitrary thing that we're talking about Kimmy, but Ty's under a lot of pressure here, and under so much pressure that he decides he needs to go for the ice barrier this turn, recognizing that any more of this going on, and he could be in danger of just getting direct damage to death. We do see in Kimmy's hand that that's not possible at the moment. He has all minions that basically charge into the face, and nothing that essentially just goes straight to the face like a kill command or a quick shot. But yeah, Kimmy gonna be able to deal with this pretty easily using that Hunter's Mark. Obviously, Unleash the Hounds is not gonna get too much value. Rather, it's not gonna do get any more hounds than one typically in this matchup. And then after that, Kimmy just going to play that Leopard Gnome and Hero Power the face. Ty's under a lot of pressure here. And what do you think he goes for this turn?
Kind of feel like he may possibly want to look at Forgotten Torch and Ping. It's a bit risky, but okay, he's looking into the full clear with Cone of Cold. This is strong too, yeah. Doesn't leave anything alive now. Yeah, I think Thijs may be running away with this, but the kill command makes this so dangerous.
Exactly, yeah. Now Tice is down to 9 health with a really annoying minion on the board. No freeze in hand as of yet. And, I mean, it feels really bad to be forced to play this Ice Block anytime soon. We do see that Kimmy, if he's able to pick up a beast, he does have lethal the following turn. Either lethal or being able to pop the Ice Block. So this is an absolutely huge turn for Tice's sake in order to maybe stay alive or maybe go for something greedy here.
Yeah, I think Thijs kind of here has to figure, okay, I'm not going to be killing the Argent Crusader. Sorry,
Horse Rider.
the Horse Rider, sorry, not Crusader. It's kind of been a long time since we've seen that, but this seems interesting. Does he just go for the Frostbolt ping here? I don't mind that. 9 is unlikely when he only has 2 cards. But
Wow.
Frostbolt is strong too. Yeah, this is strong. Okay. Obviously, you don't need to ping this turn. And Argent Squire is probably the worst minion you could ever get.
Yeah, we saw a little wince out of Kimmy right there, and I don't believe you need to use this kill command right now because you're not putting him on, you're not putting Tice on dying with just the hero power next turn, and you're most likely going to have enough mana, even if you draw something like Quick Shot, to be able to play everything the following turn. So I like just passing here, and again back to Tice under a ton of pressure. He always has the opportunity to play that ice block and prevent lethal, and looks like he's finally going to go for it now, but it's going to be difficult. Going to be able to get that ice barrier as well and make it even more difficult for Kimmy. And in this situation, even more important actually for Kimmy to draw a beast because then he can just bypass that ice barrier altogether.
Now, I want to talk about Thijs, and he has been playing, in my opinion, perfectly until now. And maybe he's getting a little bit tired or something is happening, but Thijs drawing last. That's checking the secret. Like, he played his own secret first, which I think should have been happening
I
last.
think what he wanted to do is make sure that he didn't draw the ice barrier out of his deck. So he wanted to make sure that he played the ice block because he didn't want to draw the ice block out of his deck. And then he wanted to get the ice barrier out of his deck, so he sacrificed the mad scientist. And then from there, he went for the draw so that he wouldn't draw out of his deck and so he could go for something else. So maybe that's what he was thinking about.
That could be it, but there's also other cards that would have been playable at that turn. It's a valid point, but it's a very unlikely scenario. If that is, I'll be stunned if that's what he was thinking about, but that'd be very impressive to me. Hmm.
All right, so Kimmy under a bit of
Now,
pressure here, and actually very smart of him not to. Wow, Alex Strauss is an excellent pickup here, and I think you do go for it. Kimmy with an interesting decision not to hit the face, realizing that just the kill command and the hero power, excuse me, will pop the ice block without having to even touch the barrier. And looks like Thijs is maybe starting to realize this with the non-attack last turn. Might realize that the card in hand is either quick shot or kill command. So I believe he might play around this, or he could save the Alex Raza for next turn after he's put down all the way to 2 health.
I mean, there's also the possibility of just gets one more fireball. He could possibly go aggressive with Alex and start threatening lethal.
Right.
But yeah, um, he at least is missing the Doomsayer for the Reno Jackson combo. He can't play Reno right now, but it obviously doesn't have the Reno, so it's not something you have to be afraid of. Now, is Frostbolt gonna come down? Probably not.
Yeah, interesting
Hmm.
you mentioned the Reno because obviously we know that it's not in Tice's deck because we teched, but Kimmy could be afraid of something like that. We obviously there's the double Acolyte of Pain, which could make a difference, but Kimmy he could be afraid of that situation, so maybe that could alter his play in the future. Looks like Kimmy's finally going to pop this ice block, and I imagine we're going to see an immediate Alex Strauza right back up. One thing that
Hmm.
might have prevented Thijs from going for the offensive Alex Strauza is that you wouldn't be able to attack with Alex Strauza in that situation because you would die to the potential explosive trap. So this game just absolutely back and forth, and still not completely decided who will win. This Alex Strauss is going to be huge. We'll essentially heal him for 13 plus 8 with that ice barrier because there's no real way to direct damage him down at this point, speaking of
Hmm.
Kimmy. So,
Yeah, but he'll probably need Antonidas to get enough damage to take
right,
him
right.
down from 26, or just start attacking with a minion. But what if this was a misdirect?
Yeah, what I was thinking that
Crazy.
exact same thing. What if this was a misdirection and Tice did 8 damage to himself? That would be a game-winning card here for Kimmy. I don't believe he's hovered over it yet, has he?
Don't think so, no. Wait, I think it's I believe he has, yeah. I think it's an explosive trap. If I remember correctly, it's hard to tell though. But
Hmm.
back in the old days when hunters didn't have argent horse riders and didn't have uh, haunted creepers and mad scientists, we ran arcane shot and misdirect just on
Just
the off chance of
just
of
these
a
crazy
Leroy
situations, right? Yeah. So it
and it,
looks like Tice is not afraid of dying anytime soon, even with his explosive trap, even with the extra charge from the bow. Realizes he needs to kill his opponent as quickly as possible since he is on that clock due to the hero power. Now finally gonna get aggressive, and I imagine it's going to be Frostbolt and Ice Lance to the face to prevent that weapon from attacking. And this looks like it's finally going to be going in Tice's favor. This is all but game for him.
spot on, yeah. So ties, I mean,
Wow.
taking a 3-2
Wow.
second
I
series
am
today that gone to game five.
I am absolutely getting nerd chills. Sorry for to Artosis for using your phrase there, but that was absolutely amazingly played by Tice. Just every decision spot on. Being as greedy as he could possibly be in that situation, and not playing Ice Block until he absolutely needed it. And in the end, able to finally take that match 3 games to 2. He and Dog are in first place right now, both winning their matches 3 games to 2.